Hi guys, welcome back. My name is C.S. Shantru. Once again, welcome you all to the subject which is called as Strategic Management and Corporate Finance, CS Professional, Group Second, paper number 5, CS Professional New Course. And this is the batch in Complete English. So I think you've already watched the chapter number 1, where we discussed about the strategic management as to what it is, and then strategic planning, and then strategic objectives, or probably CSR, all of that. So now let's move forward to the chapter number 2, which is also called as analyzing the external and the internal environment. So technically, we are starting the chapter right now, but then as we move forward in this chapter, you will realize that there will be probably more than 50% of this chapter which I've already told you. Now you'll say, what do you mean? So I mean that if you remember when we started the chapter number 1, I did talk about the environment, calling it as an external, internal, also calling it as pastel, which is political, economical, social, technological, legal environment. And then I said the company or any organization can't really have much control over the external factors, right? So all of that, whatever I've just said, we will discuss those things in detail in this chapter. So I think this will be pretty easy and a straightforward chapter. Now, in strategic management, I think when you are being listening to all of this in examination, your skills as to writing will be tested. They will not probably ask, obviously Have not drafted the question paper, so I can't really guarantee, but as to what I feel from the past papers, I think they will not ask you to tell what is external environment, or they'll not ask you probably to just say something about CSR. They will ask all of this thing in the form of case study. So whatever will be discussed during the classes, it is kind of your responsibility that wherever you think it is needed, it is required, kindly prepare the notes for the same. As you've been watching the lectures, you have the option, I'm sure you have the option in our softwares, that you can adjust the speed. So if you feel I'm too slow or too fast, I'm sure nobody will feel that I'm too slow anyway, but just in case it is, then you have the power to control me, right? So that's how it is. And then we do have test series, so you can also enroll with for the same, so that you can check for yourself as to where do you stand and what needs to be improved in your writing pattern. Now let's get started with this chapter. So when we talk about this, let's talk about the environment influence on business. Now, as I was speaking to you on this, I think I was just having my evening tea, and then I don't know how I was just going through this because this is not the first time I'm actually taking up this entire course. I've already taught in a detailed class, then the Hindi version, and then now the complete version or the complete English version. So technically, it's the third time. Once detail and then Hindi fast track batch, and now the English one. So suddenly something came to my mind, which was Baiju's case, and that is just because I actually started reading about this thing before I was about to start the class. So I'm sure you must have heard about Baiju's. Now, at this particular point of time, they've been facing insolvency, right? Probably by the time you being listening to this, maybe the insolvency is finalized. Generally, it doesn't get finalized so early for these kind of big companies, but obviously that will be the end result anyway. So I mean, it is something for us to analyze what happened to Byju's actually. At one point of time, they even hired the multi-star film star, Bollywood star Shah Rukh Khan, right, brand ambassador, and probably in the international market, they also hired various famous celebrities. In India, they sponsored the Indian cricket team front side jersey. So what happened suddenly to Byju's that they are on the verge of closing down? There could be various reasons, but then one of them could be the environmental factor. So during the COVID time, Baiju's profit actually probably blasted, and then it was not within any boundaries. It actually went on and on and on. But then that was probably for 2 years or 2.5 years. But as soon as the COVID actually got restricted, or probably got out of India or out of the world, then again people actually started going to the online offline thing, etc. So that time Byju's didn't really had any model. They did try to open the the physical coaching centers, but then it also didn't work out. Like it didn't actually proven to be a successful thing. So I think what this makes us learn is that environment is something which we can't really control, right? And we have to adjust accordingly. Like COVID, nobody, like obviously they say people from China have done that, but probably I don't know, and there's no study about it. So nobody knows how it actually came, right? But then when it came, the company started taking advantage of it. But then maybe they didn't realize that this is not something that will stay forever with us. It will go someday or the other, it will go, and the things will get back to normal. It may take years, like it has taken, but still it will get back to normal. So I think Byju's maybe didn't realize this, and they keep on earning at that particular point of time without thinking what will happen in next year or a two. And as a result of that, you will see now that they are on the verge of insolvency. So I think it's very very important that we consider the environment around us, and as soon as environment gets changes, we have to change according to the environment. I think I mentioned this in the previous chapter as well. The policies of the government won't change because of us. We have to change according to the policies, right? Similarly, anything that I've just said about pastel, political, do you think you or I individually, like collectively, we do have the power to form the government to elect who will be the leading political party? But can a single person do that? I don't really think so. Economy, how will the dollar will perform against rupee? Like rupee will be weak or strong. Can we decide it individually? No. Can a company decide it? No. So it depends, right? It depends on various factors. So all in all, you have to be mindful of the environment as to what is going on and accordingly frame the policies. Okay. So it says, talking about the introduction, that business really helps any country to actually grow its economy because it's provide like an employment obviously to various people. But then a business cannot exist in vacuum, right? It actually get influenced by the environment within which or under which it operates, which is internal as well as external. And the business obviously have to keep in line with those things. As a top executive or like the board of directors, they need to make sure that the company policies are aligned with the external forces, while the middle and the lower level are much more related to the internal management. Like the middle level and the lower level may not be bothered as to what the competitors are doing and what they need to do to give them an answer. This is something for the top executive to decide what should be the next strategy, what should be the strategic move. So everybody has their own role in the organization, and we need to abide by the same. It says when actually a business function, there are various forces that really affects the business. There are suppliers, competitors, consumers, bankers, economic condition, market investor, technology, institutional investments, yeah, international institutions, and various other factors that have been working with the business environment. So the business has to keep all of this in mind. Will as we move forward, we'll realize that this can be divided into internal and then external, and then the internal can be micro and then macro. If I, for example, we all know that government, for example, or let's say policies, for example, political things, for example, all of that is an external thing that we can't. Economy, for example, is an external part that we can't really control. But then, if I talk about the internal side of things, let's say, for example, our suppliers or our employees, do you think you really have 100% control over them? I think we cannot say that we do have 100% control, but since we are paying them, there is a possibility that we will be able to exercise some control over them, right? If they want to work with us, if they wish to work with us, they need to follow the policies. But then if the policies are too harsh, or probably if the working environment is not good, I don't really think so that people would like to work in that particular organization. So that's how it does. Like everything has a limit as to till what time you can stretch that particular thing. Now, importance of environment study. The benefits of environment studies are as follows: that it helps you to develop the strategies and long-term planning. It helps you to deal with the change in the environment. It actually helps you to counter the competitive strategy. You must have seen. So I'm sure you watch television, right? Or probably on YouTube or etc. For example, Coca-Cola hires, let's say, Shah Rukh Khan, for example. Then Pepsi will hire Salman Khan. So they could, I mean, I'm just taking as an example, it may not be 100% correct, but what I'm trying to say that whatever one company does, and if they are close competitor to each other, they will try to the other company will try to do it better from their competitor, right? If they've been paying so much to these film stars, the other company will also not be left behind. They are also ready to pay something more to someone who is more bigger than that. So I think this is all that happens. I mean, if you see the company Pepsi launched Pepsi, for Coca-Cola launched Coca-Cola, both black drinks. Then one launched Sprite, the other launched Mountain Dew. Then one launched Mirinda, the other launched Fanta, which is an orange flavored drink. So you see, like I don't really think so that there will be just even one drink that one company is offering while the other is not offering. Hardly there would be any. So this is a close competition. They've been keeping up to date with the other as to what is happening with the other, and accordingly deciding and dealing with the policy. And that is how, and that is what the environmental study is actually all about. You study as to what is going on, and then obviously frame policy, process, procedure, etc. Characteristics and the component of business environment. The characteristics are the business obviously is dynamic in nature. It keeps on changing. It is not static. We have discussed that in the chapter number one, where we said strategy is not static. It keeps on changing. And then obviously the business environment is also not static. Again, we have read in this chapter just now that it doesn't operate in vacuum. It actually get influenced by the environment. So all of that is a part of business characteristics. Then it has two factors, meaning external, internal. Then obviously environment is the integral part, because as I said, business doesn't operate in vacuum. So all of that is a part or the characteristics of the business. The components are being divided in two things. One is called as the internal, the other is called as the external, which I was talking to you a bit earlier. So when we talk about the external factors, external factors, obviously, as you would understand, these are something which we can't really control, or probably we don't have much control over it. Like, how would you control what consumer will buy? Like, if they have 100 rupees and they are out in the market to buy, let's say, bread, right? They want to buy a bread. Now there are various companies which are selling bread. How would a company would decide what I will buy? If it is my money, I would decide as to what I will buy. So I think we can't really um, decide as to what the consumer will buy. All we can do is we can probably give discount, bring major attractions so that they can get attracted towards us and probably inquired about it, and probably then it might also get converted into sales. Who knows? So I think external environment is something about those factors which we really don't control, or probably we have a very little control over the same. For example, shareholders, legal, competition, consumer, society, government rules. These are uncontrollable. You can't really control either of them. But then in the external, there's another category called as micro. So the one that I was talking about, which says global, and where it says the legal, the policy, the government, the economy, all of that is a part of the macro side of things under the external factors. But then in the external, we also have our suppliers, we also have customers, we also have competitors. On this, we have some control. So as I was saying just now, like I won't be able to decide for a consumer as to what they will buy. It's their money, so they will have to decide for themselves. But how or why this has been placed under the micro environment, meaning that we have slight control over it, it is because I've just explained, saying that we can bring discounts, right? The customers may get attracted towards the same. We can lower the price, or we may offer one plus one, or probably something or more better. We can give them some coupons or things of that sort. So that way, it might help actually to change their decision. If they are a loyal customer, then that's fine. But if they are not, then definitely, I think this can really help to change the decision of at least some customer. And that's how, and that's what the business really wants, because every company do understand and appreciate that they cannot own 100% of the market, you know. So there are people who doesn't really get affected whether they are drinking Pepsi or Coca-Cola. But then there would be some who just want Pepsi, and probably if that is not available, they will go somewhere else and ask for Pepsi. They will not take Coca-Cola, and likely the other way around as well. So I think that's how the market is being driven. So these are the factors that are really influential, and probably we have slight. control over them. But then on the right hand side where it says the macro, this has something where we doesn't have any sort of control. Talking about the external in more detail as to what we were discussing earlier, so it says our suppliers where we have some control, because suppliers are someone to whom we will be paying and they will also be supplying the goods to us. So if we maintain good relation with them, probably will get credit. We also might get the cost or products at a lower cost, like raw material at a lower cost, or probably, as I said, more time to repay them, like more timeline for the credit. So all of that is something that depends upon the relation to relation. I mean, you can take it this way as well. If there are few peoples in your group, be it office, college, school, whatever, or social gathering, everyone relation with the other is not same. They, so Mr. A or Miss A or Mrs. A, whatever, may be having a very good relation with B, but might not even like to talk to C. So it really depends, right? It depends upon person to person. So that's how, and that's why we say that if we actually have a good talking terms with our suppliers, it can be a game changer for us. Then again, customers, if we treat the customers in a good way, obviously it will really help us. Although we said that we can't really control the mind of customers and no one can really does. But then if we have a good relation with customers, we think of them, we actually respect them, and we hear their opinion, their feedback, and work it out, then for sure it will definitely help us. As contrary to a company who doesn't really bother about their customers, who just want to sell the product by hook or crook and probably doesn't reply to anything that's being said. But then on the other hand, there's a company that works for you and probably replies to you, help you out the best they can. I mean, even if I like to tell you, like when I'm talking all of that, I like to tell you there will be still few people who will not be satisfied. They will still say, "Oh no, this is not something good. We were expecting something better." All of that. So this will happen. You cannot really satisfy everyone, right? And that is why I said just at the very start of this particular topic that if it had been the case, there would be just one company in every segment that would be in existence. Why there are so many companies, and then so many companies are being competing with each other? Because everybody preference is different. Somebody gets satisfaction at place A or company A products, somebody gets satisfaction with company B products. So it is like a human nature, and you can't really change that. All we can do is give our best. Market intermediaries, in the firm external and micro environment, marketing intermediaries play an essential role of selling and distributing the products to final customers. Business has to maintain healthy relation with them to carry out the activities smoothly. Now, market intermediaries are those people, probably those who give us the business. You can call them as a mediator, you can call them as an agent. If we treat them well, then there are chances that obviously they'll bring more business to us. So all of this is controllable. It is up to us. So everybody, everything, when a relationship is new, be it a personal or a professional, everything is clean. You've been giving a pen and a paper, and then as and when the days move along, the relationship goes up, down, up, down, up, down. But then when it got started, there was nothing. There was nothing. It was very clear. Every one or two parties, three parties, whatever, be it professional or personal, it really didn't have anything on the other side, and it's between the parties. That's how relation actually went forward. Like it's up to them how they took it really forward. Talking about the competitors now, obviously, see, there was a time when the people from industry will not like to see each other if they are competitors, but now they have understood that this is not something that will work out, because now the media cameras and all those things are probably on those big people. The camera is 24 by 7 on them. Like whenever they appear in public, it's being seen what they're being doing, what they're being saying, what they're being eating, etc., etc. So now they try to treat each other with respect, because they have understood, and I think you will also appreciate, just by telling something or wrong to someone will not help. You have to prove it, right? So you better concentrate on your strategies. You better concentrate on your business rather than saying bad about someone in public domain. So I think that's how the competition thing should be taken. So different firms in the industry compete with each other for the sale of their products. The competition may be on the basis of pricing of their products, and also non-price competition through competitive advertisements such as sponsoring event to promote the sale of varieties. model of the product. They can't constantly watch competitor policies and adjust their policies to gain the confidence. So that's how I think that's what marketing is all about. You can, as we said earlier, it doesn't really do in vacuum. It's not something that you just do your own and close your eyes and then just do your own and then close your. You have to look around and probably do a 360 degree if that's possible, because you need to look around as to what is going on and then what you can do to make it even better. So that's the whole sole purpose of beating the competition. Then public. You see, a lot of times it was formerly, I think, known as Twitter, now called as X, Elon Musk, and all of that controversies regarding his buying Twitter, etc. Now, you see, a lot of times it's being seen. I have seen that if you check the trends on Twitter, so it will say boycott and a company name for whatever reason, for hurting religious sentiments or speaking something wrong. The people will start a trend called as boycott whatever company XYZ. It can be on anything. So this brings a bad image. On one hand, what you've been doing is hiring Shah Rukh Khan, Salman Khan, Amitabh Bachchan, or whatever film stars internationally, Hollywood, Bollywood, Tollywood, whatever. You've been hiring all of those people to promote your brand. They've been charging like a big fees just because they're being bringing their name to your brand. And then if these things are happening, then for sure no celebrity would like to endorse your brand. And anything that you have paid so far, probably you will not able to get much value out of it. So I think it's very, very important that we maintain a good public relation. There will be ups and downs in the business. There will be some point where the public may get miscommunicated or misinformed. So it's your responsibility as a company to actually take care of all of that. And I think we discussed in the last chapter as to why all of this is being included in your course, what you have to do specifically in that. Now, I'll take you to the chapter about number one. I'll not scroll the pages, but then if you recognize the chapter number one, the last topic where the company secretary role was being mentioned, and I repeatedly mentioned in those chapters saying company secretary has a 360-degree role, etc., etc. So that is where company secretary steps in. So company secretary is not something that you should just uh, imagine about compliance or think about compliance. It's kind of a 360 degree, as I've been saying for a multiple times right now. You have to make sure compliance, you have to make sure the relationship that we've been discussing so far with all the stakeholders stays good all the time. And that's what company secretary really does. External environment, if you talk about all of that, so this is something we really probably don't have much control, or probably zero control, I would say. Now, why do I say zero control? Now, the reason as to why I'm saying zero control, you can probably see from the first thing where it says economic environment. Now, what will be the GDP of India, or how the economy will grow? Will dollar, as I said just before, be more strong, or rupee will get weakened? And if either of that, by how much? How much? There was a time, like as an Indian mentality, I'm talking. There was a time that when someone used to say, if I talk about myself, I can't really talk about everyone else. But there was a time when somebody used to say a dollar, like this is costing this much in US, we used to multiply it by 60, not 50, not 40, directly 60 as a normal tendency. But at this particular point of time, I think probably whosoever is being doing this is completely wrong, because the dollar rate is probably more than 85 or around 85 rupees. And even more than that, if you being planning for a trip to US or any of these countries where Australian dollar American dollar works, because in Australia dollar also works, Singapore also dollar, Canada also dollars, but their value obviously is very less as compared to the US one. So you'll find out that the bank will charge anything that's being there, bank will charge their commission over and above that. Bank or forex dealer will charge over and above that. Now, when I'm being doing or saying all of this, I wanted you to know that this is not something you can control. If it would have been under our control, why would we want that $1? If we give initially we were giving 60 rupees and getting $1. Now even in 85 rupees we're not getting $1, which is kind of a 25% more that we've been spending in terms of money, and in terms of percentage probably 50%. So this is not something we can control. So all we can do is we have to adjust according to the economy. The other example, let's say Ukraine and Russia, they've been fighting. They've been fighting, and so many people are unfortunately getting killed, and probably they are being getting they are being homeless. They don't have any home, they don't have any food to eat. A lot of tension has been created in the international market. Stock market of the US Nasdaq is falling, is going down. Similarly, the effect will come to India. You have not done anything wrong, I have not done anything wrong, we collectively have not done anything wrong, but then we have to suffer because this is not something we can really control. Political legal environment. So political legal environment is something whereby it is decided as to what kind of government will be there in a country, because sometimes the government works on one ideology. They try to promote one ideology, be it India, US, or whatever. So when those kind of government comes, it really gets difficult, because the businesses would think again if they should come to your economy, your country, to open up the business, to do the investment, how safe their investment is. Because if there is a political instability, I think in the past few years, few days, we have seen a lot about Sri Lanka. If there's a political instability, no new company will come to your country and do investment, because investment is not something you do it today and you get return tomorrow. It will take years and years and years, and by the time the things are being passing, the company doesn't have any future. The company doesn't have any money. The company probably has a lot of debt. Then how would they will be able to recover all of that? They'll come to the corporates only. So nobody will invest in those kind of economies. So this is again an external factor that's being mentioned here. Technological environment. So technology is something that keeps on changing, and obviously, if we probably change according to the technology, our business will grow, and if not, then obviously it will be otherwise. Now, if I'll give you one example, technology now, EV, electronic vehicles. There's a buzzword these days. A lot of company, or probably I'll say almost all kind of companies in automobile sector, like in the four-wheeler side of things, have brought some or the other EV. I can't really, because I don't have one, so I can't really commit as to how much successful it is. But there was a survey recently. I don't know, but I feel it is not genuine one. Although I don't have EV as I said, but still I don't feel that survey is genuine. I've seen a lot of posts. I don't know what is the source for that, but it says those people who have taken EV are regretting their decision because they now want to shift to petrol or diesel. I don't really think so. So when I really try and probably go detail in the details of that post, it says that the maintenance cost of the EV is too high. So I'm not really sure about it, but then this has to do with the technology side of things. If the company upgrade or update their technology, then there is a chance that they will perform even better. Global international environment, as to what is happening in the overall economy, has probably a place in your business. As to, for example, if you deal in export or you deal in import. If you deal in export, there's a war going on in the other country where you actually export, then obviously your export will come to zero. You won't be earning any foreign exchange. And similarly, if the import was about to happen, the war broke out, or some policy got changed, you won't get the import. And probably that was in machinery that you was taking to manufacture the goods. Now the machinery is not coming, so how would you manufacture the goods? So this is not something that you have done, but it is those factors, as we said, that it's beyond our control. Demographic environment. Demographic means what kind of people lives in a society. Like, if I go by the news that's been there, it says India is probably one of those countries which have the youngest people. Like, there will be various people, don't have the numbers, I don't have the numbers right now, but I've read it somewhere saying that we have the youngest people or youngest generation in comparison to the other countries. The other countries may be advanced like Australia and all of that, but they don't have much young people. So obviously there's a life cycle. You can't, if nobody, like, obviously nobody is here for it till forever. Some, like, we have to go somewhere, or someday, some point of time we have to go, right? So the younger generation will take the things forward. So in the end of the day, if the younger generation is not there in a country, so obviously the future is dark. So I think that also is one of the thing which is beyond our control, meaning that what kind of people live in our society, how much educated they are, what kind of population we have, is it skilled labor force, unskilled force. There's nothing much a company can really do about all of these things. Ecological environment, meaning the natural resources such as air, water, solar can be replenished, yet business organizations are polluting these resources by dumping chemical industrial waste in water and affecting the ozone layer. The environment damage to the water, earth, and air caused by the industry activity of mankind is harmful for future generations. See, when we talk about ecological, I can also probably relate it to biodiversity. So all of those things that are being happening in the environment is something which government is being trying to make the laws around the same, but it is not helping in that way like it should, meaning that the corporates being dumping all those chemicals and things like untreated water etc directly into the rivers. And you will find in Delhi, I can tell you about Delhi. So there's a river, Yamuna, you know. So if you even right now just open your mobile, or maybe after, don't do it now, do it after the class, because if you start mobile now, there's no going back to the class. I can for sure say that. So if you after the class type Yamuna River, you'll find river is presumed to be one that has clean water or near to clean at least. But I don't think there is any definition in the world that says river has a black water. But in Yamuna, you'll find only black water, at least in Delhi adjacent area, because there are so many industries nearby this river and they've been discharging the waste. So this is something again that the government can obviously bring action or probably change, and there's nothing much a corporate can really do. If it is something that they could have done, then this should have been done by now, because this is not something that is happening only this year or probably from the last year. From years and years, the same thing has been getting repeated, and this really affects the aquatic life and obviously the things around it. Now let's talk about the internal environment in more detail. So now let's talk about the internal environment. So I think, as I just said, internal is something which you can say out of the external and internal. Out of these two, internal is the one on which you have most control. Like, I'll not again say 100%, but then I'll say more than 90%, because this includes, for example, the first one where it says value system. Anything that has to do with the company objective, planning, process, strategy, values is something that's being decided by the company internally by their board of directors technically. So this is something with that is in your hands. Like, you decide what kind of business you want to make, what leadership it will be, what will be your objective, what are you giving to the customers, and then what do you expect in return. So this is something for the company to decide between themselves. So that is why the first point is value system. It says the Infosys was the one of the first company which won the National Governance Award in 1999, and the reason as to why it says that its report on the corporate governance says that our corporate culture is to achieve our objective in environment of fairness, honesty, transparency, courtesy towards our customers, employees, vendors, and society at large. So this is the thing that they have done between themselves. Like that, this is something that they not they have achieved, I would say, but this is something that they had their target. Like, when we talk about targets, this is something, for example, let's say the examination are near. I don't know really when you've been watching the classes. For example, the examinations are near, right? So I'm sure everyone will have some kind of target, meaning that they will complete this course or this subject during this time, and then they will start this one, they will start that one. So all of that is something that you could decide for yourself. You don't need anyone else approval. So this is why, or that is why it's being called that this is something which is controllable or falls under the definition of controllable. Talking about missions and objective, again, the business philosophy on dealing with things, or business policy objective, where the business wants to be in next 5 years, 10 years, or what is the ultimate objective of formation of the business, what business would like to do towards the society. All this is a part of something which the business have control on, and they can really decide as to what needs to be done here. In regard to the organization structure, like, who will be in the top management, who will be in the middle, and then the lower management, what kind of directors you will be having, executive, non-executive, independent, if independent, how many independent, what qualification criteria. Again, this is something you could decide for your organization, and that is why it's being called as an internal factor. Corporate culture. It's basically the working environment. Now, this is not something that the government will fix for you or your customer will do it for you. This is being determined again by the top leadership or the management team. So it says corporate culture is an important factor for determining the internal environment of the company. In a close and threatening type of corporate culture, the business decisions are taken by top level, while the middle level and the lower level have no say in the business decision making. This lead to the lack of trust and confidence among the subordinate officials of the company. So corporate culture is the other thing, which means the business actually will how the business will be driven, like what kind of people will work in the business, will the bad behavior be tolerated or not, will the respect would be the priority or the respect among the co-workers would be the priority, their dignity. So all of that, it really depends upon a company to decide. This is not something that is uncontrollable. Definitely the company has the option to hire the right people because they'll be paying the salaries for the same. Quality of the human resource, what kind of labor you will hire, again it depends upon the company. So all of this is a part of the internal process that can be changed as per the requirement. So this is not um, a static thing, or you can say you're not sure. This is something that you should be able to control, because the other factors that we discussed earlier are those things which we really don't know, and we don't know how the things will turn up. But then when we talk about all of this, be it employees, the environment, the mission, the values, the objective, this is something that you have to decide for the company. So again, this is controllable thing. A labor union, again, as you know, that labor unions are being formed to make sure that the right of the labor stays protected, the right of the workman stays protected, which means they've been giving the like fair wages, and obviously the working conditions are good. So if the management has a good relationship with the labor unions, then definitely the things will work out in a good way, and if not, then obviously it will be the other way around. So this is how uh, it would be dealt with. Moving forward, we can talk about the Potter 5 forces model. Actually, Potter 5 forces primarily talks about the fact that how would you take your decision. So these four five forces, when we discuss, technically it's been called as five forces, but over the period of time, one more forces has developed. We'll talk more about it as we move forward. But then Porter five forces talks about the threat of competition, the buyers' powers, the suppliers' powers, all of that, and it actually equals to, like, all the five forces equals to your business decision. Like whatever happens in these forces, or depending upon how much uh, pressure is being put by these forces on your business decision will change. It will change according to the forces, according to the pressure that would be put in by these five forces that have been defined by Porter. So what are they, and how would they affect our decision? Let's try and find out more about it. So talking about Porter 5 forces model, I'll now try and list down as to what they are. I've already kind of I've already given you kind of a brief introduction about those things, where I talked about the threat of the new entrant and the buyer's powers, supplier powers, and all of that. So now let's discuss one of them one by one. So first of all, when we talk about those five forces as to what they are, it's being mentioned here. So it says the threat of new entry, um, bargain power of suppliers, buyers, substitute, and rivalry. So when you study this Potter five forces, I don't know why, but somehow or the other, I could relate all of this to all of this to economics. So in your school days, or maybe in your college days, I think you must have studied economics if you have a commerce background, and then you must have studied all of that. We used to our teacher used to give an example saying tea versus coffee, like kind of a substitute side of things. So when we talk about these five forces, this really have a big effect on the business. Talking about these one by one, if I start about threat of new entry. So for example, if the existing player knows that it's very very difficult to enter into the market because the competition is very high, the profit margin is very low, and obviously anybody who will be entering into the market would first try and find out those business which are more profitable and have less competition. But in case your business is really competitive and very less margin, then probably no new players will try and enter your market. So I think the first point is a threat to new entry, where it says that if threat of new entrant is high when the small capital is required, existing companies are not influential or dominant, existing firms do not have patent, and there is no customer loyalty. So these are those things that vary from industry to industry. All we've been trying to ascertain and find out are the factors that can really affect someone to take a business decision. So if I again take you to this point where it says threat of new entrant. So I think I've already told you, if the margins are low and the competition is very high, then no new entrant probably would like to come in to the market. But in case the margins are good and there's a huge demand and only a small amount of capital is required to enter the business, then probably more of the people will get attracted and they will open that particular thing as their own business. So it really depends as to what kind of industry we've been looking for, what kind of competition does the industry have, what kind of profit margin, what are the capital requirements. Now let's take an example to explain this thing more in a more elaborate way. So, for example, someone says that if we count in India, there are just a handful of telecom companies, right? If you try and name a name, then probably you would be able to name all of those on your fingertips, because there are not too much companies in India in the telecom sector. So, but then if you want to enter the telecom sector, I think the first thing that will come to your mind is already the presence of those big players, Reliance in the form of Geo or Airtel or Vodafone Idea. All this have a very good financial backing. So you need to make sure that you have that much financial reserve that you can fight with these players when it comes to competition. If you don't have that, then there's no point of entering into this market. So I think that's pretty much everything about the threat of new entrant, because the entrant will only come to the market if it is viable. If if it is too much competitive, then I don't really think so the people will try and come in there. Bargain power of suppliers. So suppliers obviously are those who actually provides you the raw material. If there are large number of suppliers, then probably you'll get more credit and you'll get more competitive prices, and probably you'll get good quality raw material. But if the suppliers are only handful, like there are just few people who could supply this kind of raw material what you are looking after or what you really want, then you will have to agree to the supplier terms, because if there are many suppliers, there are chances that you may also get the raw material on credit. But now, since the suppliers are few, so you will have to agree as to what supplier says. You cannot really dominate them. They will in turn dominate you or your business. So that's the powers of suppliers. So it really depends. If there are too many suppliers, then obviously it is good for the buyers, because they'll get competitive pricing and credit facility and various other incentive. But if the suppliers are less, then obviously they will dominate the market and they will drive the market moving forward. Bargain power of the buyers. Now, if the suppliers were less and the buyers were more, obviously the suppliers were presumed to have more influence. But then coming to the powers of the buyers, if there are only few buyers in the market, then the suppliers will have to agree with what buyers actually ask for. If the buyer asks for some credit or they ask for some discount, to the extent possible, the supplier will have to agree with that, because they don't have any other option. There are only, as we said, there are only few buyers. If there are a lot of buyers, then obviously then that's fine. If one buyer doesn't buy from one supplier, that particular supplier can maybe sell the goods to some other buyer. But what would you do if there are only few buyers in the market? You will have to really follow the buyer's approach in the market. So that's what has been mentioned here. The whole objective of explaining this Potter five principles and all those details that I've been speaking with you about all of those things is to make you realize that in business environment, it's not something that you drive the entire thing. Maybe you are the director or a very senior person. You may be having a strategic role there, as to what we discussed in those previous chapters. But then strategy is not probably a thing whereby you can think that you can do everything and anything by your own. I mean, you can't really do that. You need the support of people to find out what can be done in that situation, what would be the best to do in that situation. So all of that is a part of strategy, and it's a part of strategy planning, and that's how the business really work out. Moving forward, we talk about the fourth force, which is the threat of substitute. Now, if it is a lot of substitutes are available, then obviously you cannot sell the product at any price. It has to be a genuine price, and you have to stay competitive. Otherwise, if the price is a factor and if the price is quite high, people will actually try and buy out the substitute. As I was just speaking to you, saying tea and coffee. Like I know that there would be some tea lovers and then there would be some coffee lovers as well who would not like to switch between these two. But I'm talking in general. You went for some, it's winters, right? It's winters going on. Let's say it's winters going on and the temperature is about zero or near about that. You want some hot drink. So you went to a cafe or whatever and you asked for a hot drink and you said, I want a coffee. They said, we don't have coffee, we can provide you the tea. So this is something that will act as a substitute. They are not giving you the water, but they've been giving you a tea, which is kind of close substitute to coffee to most of the people. So I think the price of the business decision will also vary depending upon how many substitutes are there. If there's no substitute, for example, in India, there's no substitute for railway. If you have to travel, like if you need to travel from one place to other through rail, then obviously you have to choose Indian Railways. There's no substitute about it. Like you can maybe if you want to travel by road or anything by air, then that's a different thing because you have a lot of substitute there. If one airline doesn't offer you a good fare or a reasonable fare, you may actually go to the other airlines. But what will happen to the railways? Like you have to rely on them. There's no substitute for rail in India at this particular point of time. So that's how it is. Rivalry among the existing competitors. See, gone are those days, as I think mentioned previously as well, where the rivalry actually happens on face. The rivalry for sure is there. I mean, I'm sure in the big companies' boardroom, you'll find all the data of the competitor as to what they've been doing, how they've been doing, what kind of profit they've been making, and various other things. They would be knowing probably almost everything about the other company and vice versa. So when it comes to rivalry, it means that if the other party or the other competitor has reduced the price, what would you do with that? Would you reduce the price, or would you actually keep the price the same, or would you probably provide some additional benefits, like you'll give something for free or you'll give some coupons? What would you do? So this is kind of a rivalry between the competitors, because the more the intense the rivalry, I would say the more beneficial it is for the customers. So I think that's how it's being mentioned here. So these are the kind of five border forces that we did discuss just now. And at the very start of this border five forces, I did mention that technically it's being said it's five forces, but now technically it's the other one which is called as sixth one, and that is also called as complements. So when we say this is a complementary thing, what do you mean by complementary? Complementary is something that's been given in addition, or it's kind of a freebie, things of that sort, right? So you are not purchasing, you're not paying for that complementary part. It's been given you probably because you have purchased something else, and in regard to that, it's been given you for a free or a very less amount. So it is also being happening nowadays that you see that Amazon, probably they have initially they started with this Amazon where they've been trying to sell various product. Then they launched Amazon Prime, and now it Prime has videos and movies and various other collections. Similarly, if you talk about Geo, they actually launched in the form of telecommunication service, but slowly and gradually entered in the form of Geo TV, and got the rights to even show the IPL, etc. So those who been purchasing GeoSim will be getting the subscription for GeoTV for, let's say, 6 months or 1 year. This is something that is an add-on benefit to them, because if I purchase a Vodafone Idea SIM or a Airtel SIM, I think they are also offering these kind of things, but it is not that it does not have that much variety as to what Geo is being offering. I mean, the experience of one user and to the other can vary for sure. So it's not necessary as to what um, my experiences would be yours as too. So it really varies, which is definitely acceptable and understandable. But I'm just talking in a very generic way, in a very large way. So all these are the forces that really drives the business and helps the business to take the decisions. Moving forward, to talk about Pizza Hut. So I'm sure you must have gone to Pizza Hut. I'm not really sure, but might be you are pizza lover. At least some of you are pizza lover. I am a pizza lover, and when I'm I'm talking to you about this, I'm just thinking about where should I go to actually have a pizza for this afternoon or for tonight for a dinner. So pizza obviously is a combination of spices, the bread, etc. You must have, I'm sure, tried it. Now, there are a lot of schemes have been going on. I'm sure you must have seen on television. At least I should actually scroll down so that I don't see the image of this. um, so I was saying that there are a lot many offers that been going on pizza, that you purchase this pizza, you get a cold drink free, and you are a first user, so you'll get this things free, etc., etc., so on and so forth. So Pizza Hut is one of those company which is an American multinational giant, and they are not just operating in India. It's being mentioned here. They've been operating across 94 countries and have probably more than 6,000 locations around the world in different cities. They also would open up the business in India probably in the year 1994 and 1996, and the first branch they opened was in Bangalore. And since then, it actually is on the expansion side. You'll find Pizza Hut outlets almost in all tier B cities now as well. So tier A cities obviously do have those, but tier B cities also having these kind of outlets now. Now, if we talk about this Potter 5 principle that we discussed earlier, this kind of industry is also facing, I'll say, probably adverse or probably intense competition, because it's not just Pizza Hut. When you talk about pizza, you really get a lot many options. There would be one pizza or probably various pizza vendors which are being located near your locality, and probably who knows they are cheaper and even give you the best quality. So but apart from that, in regard to brand competition, we have Pizza Hut, Domino's, Papa John's, and there will be so many others. It's not a patented thing that only one individual or one company can make. Everybody does that, and everybody does that in a different way and a different style. So when we talk about competition rivalry, it's being said in the very first point that it's too high. The margins in this industry is not that much, because now a lot many players have come up, and they've been offering you the pizza along with cold drink and so on and so forth things at a very cheaper price as compared to those branded ones. So this gives them the intense competition, and sometimes, see, there would be few people who are very brand conscious. They won't go anywhere apart from Pizza Hut, they won't go anywhere apart from Domino's or XYZ. But then I'm talking about largely as to how the market really reacts, because those people who are brand conscious, they really don't build the market. They have a specific set of preference, so they just follow the same. They don't really change their preferences much, and they are not the ones who are actually driving the market, because their pattern is same. So I'm talking about the other section, which is the largest section, which probably is kind of a price sensitive, and keeps on looking for various things and accordingly make the decisions. So it says the competition rivalry is high. We have various players in the market, and these are those that are being having the recognized brand name. But there would be few others, various as well, as I was talking, which are maybe located near your locality, like traditional living, um, doing or making pizza and making fresh pizza and probably providing you best deals. So the competition is too high in the market. So anybody who is thinking to trying to entering into the market should be very cautious, because the margins are low and the competition is really high in this pizza kind of segment. Threat of new entrant is very low, because as I said, the like threat is something for which you should actually feel conscious. That what will happen if this person comes in. But I really don't think so. As being mentioned here, that anybody would really get affected, because there are so many people and companies who've been making pizza and probably supplying to people, and people are being enjoying it. So even if the new players comes in, it really won't affect anyone, because the margins are not very high. So the margins are already very low. So those who are in the market from very initial times, they have already got the first mover advantage, right? So I think with that way, it can be said that the entrant, even if the new people enter into the market, it really doesn't affect the existing players much. Threat of substitute, I'd say, is very high, because if you want pizza and if you actually don't have those things, so it says, so for example, in India, if you went to Haldiram or these Bikanos fast food chain has been mentioned here, you see on their menu, even Haldiram was supposed to be a namkeen, making company. Slowly and gradually, they went into sweets, and slowly and gradually, they opened the restaurants, and slowly and gradually they went into Indian, then maybe South Indian, and now this Italian food as well. So all I'm trying to say here is that the threat of substitute is high. If you went to Haldiram or whatever, and then you said, I want one pizza, and you pointed out a particular one, they said it's not available. Any of the pizzas are not available. You may actually try something else, because they have so many other things that doesn't taste maybe like pizza, but obviously provide you similar kind of a satisfaction. So when we talk about substitute, there are so many substitute. If not pizza, then there will be so many other products, Italian product like pasta and whatnot, that you can really have. So that's the thing. Power of customers doesn't really, because this industry is not something that's very, very profitable now. It is profitable, and that's why people are being doing it. But when we talk about an extensive profit, or we talk about, industry is being generating good amount of profit, it is not like that. All those big players which are being operating are just on the basis of their brand name, that's all, because they don't have any specific R&D or any new thing. Even if they do, then people try and copy the same and probably get it to you at a very low cost and a very less price. So the power of customers, when it says medium and low, so it says fast food chains in high demand shopping centers, malls, residential areas, college, campus. In addition, customers are fragmented with no particular effect on product and price. If they want pizza, they want pizza. If it is not pizza, they didn't get pizza, they will actually try for some other thing, as we mentioned earlier. So I think that's what has been mentioned here. Power of suppliers, it says the supplier is kind of having low powers, because raw material is perishable and the suppliers will have to sell this. Otherwise, what will happen? You see, in pizza, you use some, obviously, there are variety of those, but if I talk generally, you use vegetable as an example. Now, as you would know, that vegetable is not something that you can store for a longer time. If the vegetables are not being taken, then obviously um, they will actually be in a bad condition, and it would be something that nobody actually would be able to eat it or use it, and it will be a total loss to the supplier. So the supplier is in a weak position, meaning that anyhow they will try to actually sell out the product, even if it is cost to cost basis, still they'll try to sell out the product, because they are perishable, right? If they are not using today, tomorrow you will not be able to use even 1/10 of that. So that is how the entire market is being driven. If I talk about the quarter five forces in terms of Pizza Hut. Talking about the other case study, which is the Apple in the marketplace, five forces perspective. So Apple is something that you must have really heard about. You might also be using Apple phones and various other things. See, as I was talking about pizza, I just got an ad on my mobile saying one plus one. So this is, I think we have a very strong intuition or something. I don't know what word we can really call that. Whenever you want, or you've been thinking of someone or something very deep down, suddenly those things really happen. So that's why people say always think positive, I think. Anyway, so what's so special about Apple? What's so special about iOS? Why people are crazy? Now, why I'm saying all of this is because of this. If this is something you have read before, then that's fine. But if not, then this is something which you should really read. So it says Chinese man who sold kidney to buy iPhone now bedridden for life. So we feel really sorry for him. Why? I don't know why people do it like this. It's not like if you don't have iPhone, the world is over. It's not like that. The Android ones also works fine. But I think if you can afford and if you want to try out new technology, then there is nothing wrong with that as well. So Apple, as you all know, that Steve Jobs was the one. Actually, it's not just Steve Jobs. There would be many actually who have invested their time and so on and so forth. But it's just like in his time when he was driving the company, there was a movie called as Jobs. I'm sure you must have seen that. If not, you should definitely see. I think it's on Netflix. Um, the long story short, that he was being removed from his position. He made the company, and then he was removed from his position, and thereafter he was brought back. So a lot of things actually. But then in his time, Apple actually see the exponential growth, and it says it was one of those first company in US to touch the market capitalization of $1 trillion, and people are being attracted towards Apple because of their brand loyalty and obviously the security and those things, and that is why Apple has been making a lot of profit. And I've seen in the past, probably that every year they've been, if I talk about India, obviously in world it may vary, but in September, October every year they launched a new model of iPhone, which is obviously significantly better than the one they've been offering previously, and people are obviously crazy about it. So it's an individual preference, but I really don't think so that this is worth doing for a phone, right? Anyway, so Apple obviously has also the competition. So Apple competition are Google. Google also try. It was not that successful. I think that's what my personal opinion is. But then they also tried to launch their Android phones, Google Pixel. It did work. It's not like that nobody brought those things. It did worked out, but it didn't see that exponential growth because I think the phone were kind of costly as to the Indian market or as to where the Indian market is concerned. But anyway, the competitors are Google, HP, Samsung. Samsung is also offering a very tough competition, I would say, to Apple. In most of the foreign country, you will find that people are either using Apple or Samsung. They might also be using various other brands, but then these are the two very common in the foreign countries. So Apple is known for its R&D, for providing new features and probably new technologies, all of that. So it says bargaining. If we apply again the Porter principle to this theory, it says bargaining powers of the buyers. Actually, it's nothing because when we probably talk about those two things, individual and collective bargaining power. If I don't buy Apple iPhone or watch or whatever, iPad or anything, it doesn't really affect them in any way. But if we all don't do that, it will affect them. So the individual does not really, they don't really care about it, to be very honest. It doesn't really matter to them. And collective, obviously, if collective decision is being made by various person, it does affect any company, not just Apple, but any company. So bargaining power, if I talk about on the individual perspective, it's kind of a nothing, but collectively it does affect them. In Apple, it's being said that they actually invest a lot of money in R&D, research and development, and that's what keeps them going. And they have a larger customer base who actually prefers to use their device only. They will not. There are people, I'm sure, maybe some of you are one of them, but there are people who will not use anything else apart from iOS. Everything that you'll find in their home or probably in even in their family, you'll find that they will be using iOS device only. So it really depends. It's kind of a preference, and that's what again the brand loyalty comes in, because they might have seen a significant change from Android and the iOS, and that's why they have shifted to iOS, and they are perfectly fine with that. So yeah, that's the thing. The threat of buyers opting for substitute products. So substitute, probably, I really don't think so. There will be much substitute for an iOS phone. The other thing, so ultimately, if it is the purpose is calling, then the substitute can be a landline phone. But other than that, there's no substitute as such. So had it been there, then iOS or Apple, as a company, should not have been earning this much amount of profit. So you see all the other players are on the one side, they've been using the Android platform, and only Apple actually developed its own, everything of its own, be it Play Store, be it Apple Music or the operating system, everything they have separate. And while the others, all of that, Samsung and all of those that we named above, rely on Google or Android technology. So that's what has been mentioned here. And I think with this, we come to the end of this chapter. So that was the chapter number second that we discussed in this strategic management and corporate finance. I assume that if anything that I've taught here, obviously you have understood, and if you have any question, you are more than welcome to ask. But then kindly do remember that when we were discussing any topic in this particular classes, it's your duty and responsibility that wherever you think it's needed, it's required. Probably because I give a lot of examples that are not mentioned in your books or in your modules. So if you think during the classes there's something important that's being discussed, I think you should write it down, because there's a lot of space here and there in these notes that we have given to you. So you should utilize all of that. And for anything else, if you like to check your writing practice skills, then definitely you can enroll for our test series, which is again available for all subjects. I personally draft the question paper and then check the same as well. And apart from that, the important questions are available. Um, Also for all subjects, but they are available like before the examination only, so you can also enroll for the same. Thank you so much once again for choosing Shantru and Tanya Academy.